Hello, BookTube. Recently, I have let conditions on this channel devolve into simply a pattern of bombarding you with book talk, just hurling random-ass book recommendations at your face in a very hedgehoggy manner. And I'm continuing to do that, although I don't know that we should all get used to it. It's a little freakish, right? It's just a little freakish. But let's do it. Let's do another batch of these books where we can just talk about random books. The first one being something I'm pretty sure I've shown you before. I might even have got it. I might even have hauled it on this channel years ago. This is Titanic, the Ship Magnificent. And it's a 2-volume box set. Just lovely, ornate thing. No idea how much it costs nowadays. It's fairly old. I think it's 10 years old. That is everything that, oh my God, everything that you want to give to, for instance, a Titanic fan. These are oversized books. They're beautifully designed, so you get the schematics of Titanic, the appearance of Titanic, of course, the history of the voyage, and also the sinking. That's all in here. But it is one of the most elaborate Titanic books that I have ever seen. So I know some people who are deeply interested in this subject of history. They're not really interested in the rest of history. But just this, something about this really calls to them. If that's true, you might want to save your shekels and get this, because it's the ultimate Titanic volume to have. And then we have Francis Fitzgerald. This is a terrific book. Very, it's prescient in some ways, also depressing in some ways, because the author had no idea how bad things would get. This also is from, I think, 10 years ago. This is her book, The Evangelicals, which she very carefully in her subtitle shapes describes as a struggle for power, not a struggle for faith or bringing souls to Jesus or whatever, but a struggle to shape America, to shape American society. That is definitely true. This is a big fat book, wonderful thing. Wish I could find out. I had the hardcover. I had the finished copy of this with the dust jacket from the publisher, and I didn't keep it. I don't know why I didn't, but I didn't. And I think I wrote about it. It's absolutely terrific. It really is comprehensive. So it goes deep into time to show you the evangelical history of America, which is really the history of America. And she's a little too diplomatic about the evangelicals of the late 20th century. In my opinion, there's no amount of scorn that can be heaped on them that is enough. They're all charlatans. They're all naked, obvious, horrifying, evil charlatans. And so social justice catches up with them very slowly, because all the evangelical leaders in America today, in addition to being horrible, evil, hypocritical atheists, are also pedophiles. Every single one of them, and one by one, gradually, slowly, the process of law catches up with them, and they get plucked off the twig. But I'd like it if they were all just. I wish that Christians understood how much harm to the Christian faith these creatures do. They don't seem to. But nevertheless, that element at the end of this book is a little bit frustrating. But also, it's also a little bit anachronistic on my part. It's a little bit of hindsight is negative. The book is well worth your time, especially if you're interested. I mean, if you're interested in the history of religion in America, which again, as I said, is the history of America, then you've got to read this book. It's one of the most landmark studies of the subject. Then we have Peter Polites. This is a hard novel, a tough novel. There's love in it, growing like a little dandelion through the cracks in concrete. This is Down the Hume. I believe this is an Australian author, and I believe this was his debut novel, about the young main character who is a drug addict, and that overrides a lot of the book. He's abused in other ways. He's hopeful in some ways. It hasn't completely crushed his soul. And I like the way the author, I mean, this is a novel, so the author has to play a little bit with fantasy. I've almost never in my life read a novel that was actually realistic. I mean, what would be the point? But even the novels that claim to be realism, that claim to be of the ultra realism school, are utterly ridiculously surreal. This tries not to be. It tries to be real. It takes a few liberties. A character who was as addicted as the main character of this book. Drug addiction, it isn't a style. It isn't a personal decision. Once you are chemically addicted, you're not a person anymore. You're just a hole through which your addiction flows. That's it. That's all you are. So that's all you think about. That's all you really think about. It's all you really care about. You can go through the motions of renting a tux and being somebody's best man or going to work or whatnot, but it's really the whole of your existence once you reach a certain point. And I think the main character in this book would have reached that point by now, which would make this book incredibly boring to read. It's what makes drug addicts boring. Is that their addiction is literally, once you scrape away the little gestures here and there, oh, she's the love of my life, or gee, I like my job, or I like spending time with my dogs. Once you scrape away that, all of that is just completely shallow surface stuff. The drug is everything. That's how drug addictions work, and they don't care what you think. Drug addictions don't care what you think, and you have to gild that lily when you're writing a book like this. But I thought that slim little sliver of love, of hope in this book wasn't insulting, even given the context. So I don't know if it's still in print. Probably it's in print in Australia, but it's worth a while. It's a debut novel. If I remember correctly, it is worth your while. Then we have comic books. Got to have something for Hannah at Hannah's Books. This was from the DC Comics Classics Library. This was a reprint line that DC Comics started. I think they did like 4 volumes in it and then stopped. They just stopped doing it. But one of the first volumes that they did was a Legion of Superheroes volume, because that makes sense. If you're DC Comics and you want to launch a reprint project of any kind, one of the first things you should do should be the Legion of Superheroes, because Legion of Superheroes fans are the most dedicated fans of them all and will buy it. So at least that one thing in your launch will sell. So the DC Comics Classics Library did a slim hardcover volume called The Life and Death of Pharaoh Lad. That is Pharaoh Lad. He is a member of the Legion of Superheroes, a team of dreamy teenagers 1,000 years in the future who band together to fight evil and injustice and handle natural emergencies and whatnot. Their big superhero team, the biggest superhero team, sometimes 30 members, they're all teenagers. You're not allowed to be in the Legion if you're older than that. And you've got to all have slightly different superpowers. It can't all just be a team of Kryptonians and whatnot. And Pharaoh Lad, it's the FE and the Pharaoh is because of iron. I know. You didn't call him Iron Lad. You called him Pharaoh Lad. He's a very interesting figure in the early Legion years. He was just an ordinary Legionnaire. He had his superpowers that he can transform his body into living iron, much like the X-Men Colossus in the later all-new, all-different X-Men. That makes him super strong and nearly invulnerable, and it's a good Legionnaire to have in a tight pinch. He doesn't have any other powers. He uses his Legion flight ring to fly. He doesn't have any vision powers or energy powers of any kind. He can just turn his body into organic iron, into a living, breathing, flexible iron. He's interesting in a couple of other ways in Legion lore. He's a mutant, for instance. We're not in Legion history, in Legion characters, there aren't many of those. And also, he is disfigured. And I guess in the 30th century, there's still a stigma about that. He's from Earth, but he's disfigured, so he wears a full face mask. And the reason why this is called The Life and Death of Pharaoh Lad is because another amazing thing about this character, definitely when I bought the issue, is that he dies. He fights a creature. It's actually present in the background on this cover. He fights a giant creature and gives his life to defeat it. And that will seem like absolute small potatoes to a comic book reader now, where characters die in every issue. But where DC Comics could do and tout an issue called The Death of the Justice League that shows all the Justice League dying on the cover while they're soliciting the new Justice League from issues for 3 months. You retailers, make sure to get your order in for the Justice League issues 3 months from now with the Justice League hale and healthy on the cover. Like, that isn't going to leak. It's become utterly trivial for a character to die now, but when it happened here 60 years ago, it was not trivial. It was kind of remarkable. And I like the dorky format here, even though DC didn't stick with it. Then we have something. This is by Jed Adamson. This is a classic. It's a children's book. It's Shark Dog. I've praised this before on this channel. This is about a young girl and her scientist explorer father who find a weird kind of animal. It is a shark dog. It is a shark-like creature. It has a tail. It can burrow straight through the ground, but it's also like a dog. It's goofy and friendly and wants to cuddle. Naturally. being that I have a lifelong phobia about sharks and a lifelong attraction to dogs, naturally, I, so to speak, ate this up. I loved it. Absolutely loved it. If you want a kid's book that you are going to adore reading to your kid, that you're going to adore yourself at the same time, get this one, I guess, and its sequel. But Shark Dog is just a classic. Then we have something by Cynthia Riggs. This is a murder mystery set on Martha's Vineyard, an island off the coast of Massachusetts, and it's called Touch Me Not. And it's a cozy murder mystery. It's from a few years ago. It's very good. There's a red herring, there's a dead body, there's a cast of quirky characters. The vineyard is fairly well evoked. But the main interesting thing about this book, and I always mean to check to see if this had sequels, the main interesting thing about this book is that the main character, the sleuth, is in her 90s. Which is kind of amazing. It adds a tenor to this book that I really liked, and it's never done unrealistically. There's another murder mystery series that I read. I honestly can't remember the details of it, where the male character, the male sleuth, is in his 90s, or else really old. But I really enjoyed this. I would love to have a copy of it. I know that's a theme for this little Hedgehog review. Then we have something by Gordon Brooke Shepherd. This is it's a biography, kinda, but really it's a study, and it should be one of hundreds, and it's not. It's a study of Edward VII, King Edward VII of England, my King Edward, called Uncle of Europe. And the study is of his statecraft, not so much his whole life. So you will get, the nickname that he had when he was a teenager. You'll get all the gambling debts and the womanizing. You'll get the disapproving mother, Queen Victoria. But the main thing you'll get here is all the stuff that he did when he was king. He was only king for 10 years. But he did a lot. He was related to almost every monarch and head of state, or every monarch in Europe. And this was in fact the last time, when the king could simply do stuff on his own, as though he were not only ruling but reigning. Not only reigning but ruling, that he wasn't just an empty figurehead. He was. I should stress that. And it was stressed to King Edward many times by his retainers and also by his government ministers, that you are, in fact, an empty figurehead. You are not allowed to speak for the government. But Edward was a throwback. Temperamentally, he was a throwback to another time, when kings did. When we are the nation in small. A nation does what it does for our reasons. He was a throwback to those eras. And only to the good. He never caused disasters with what he did. He only fixed things, especially the relationship between England and France, which had been a little frayed, and neither Edward nor anyone else at the time when he was fixing it knew how important that would be in very little time, just a few years after he died. This is very intelligently done. It doesn't make Edward a buffoon. It doesn't make him a bloated old roue. It doesn't make him anything like that. It makes him a serious figure. And like I say, there should have been a lot of books like that, and there haven't been. Okay, this next one is an oversized thing. It's full of artwork. Artwork is tragic. It's melancholy, but it's full of artwork. And since it's such a high-profile, high-design thing, I don't know how easy it would be to get a copy. I know it's not in print anymore. And this is The Journey is the Destination. This is the artwork and photographs and the illustrated journals of a kid named Dan Eldon. That is him on the cover. Who was a remarkable figure. He was a jack of all trades. He was an artist down to his DNA. Not in the artsy-fartsy sense, but in the sense that he was always seeing the visual and the musical possibilities in everything that he looked at, and in every one that he met. And he was intrepid. He wanted to go and help people. He wanted to go out into the world and use music and use art and use journalism and use especially photography. She was very skilled at it, and God only knows how much more skilled he would have become in all of that. He had a magic, in other words, to him. Anyone who knew him in Iowa at the end of his life would admit that. You didn't like sometimes to admit it because he could be obnoxious, but he had a magic to him, a magic and a charisma. And the reason I'm using the past tense, even though he's very, very young, is because he was in Somalia when he was still just a boy, when he was murdered by savages. Rather brutally. We don't no need to go into the details. It's not present in this book. But this book ended up being his testament. It shouldn't have been. It should have been the first thing. And then a Pulitzer Prize winning book, and then maybe another Pulitzer Prize winning book, a very high profile. He would have ended up at the highest profile, best paying place that he could possibly go for the kind of thing that he did. Or in the 21st century, he started doing it on his own, with an organization or a foundation of his own. None of that happened. Instead, he died a horrible, squalid death, screaming for mercy. Exactly the kind of mercy that he unhesitatingly gave to everyone in his life that was denied to him. So if you can find a copy of The Journey is the Destination, I have no idea what that means. It seemed to be a major motion picture. If there ever was a movie of this, I never saw it. I never would. I don't think I ever would. But if you can find a copy of this book, I've never seen it used. People that got it hold on to it, especially now. But if you can find a copy, it's eye-opening. And then we have something. This is by John Patterson McLean. This is prehistory. It is interesting. It's very interesting. I'm going to try not to just go on a tirade about its design. This is called Masttoaston Mammoth Man. What is on the cover of this book? But this is about early man. This is about prehistoric man. It has nothing to do with sauropods. Nothing at all. It has nothing to do with theropods. It has nothing to do with whatever this is. Some early tyrannosaurid. It's a book about prehistoric man. And it's quite good. I mean, with any book like this, you're going to run the risk of what you encounter here, which is that a lot of it will no longer be up to date. And in this case, since it's a bulletin from the world of science, that actually matters. But it's still really good. I don't know if this is just a cover that I just pulled this off the internet. Maybe this is not the real cover. I don't remember it having this cover when I read it. But if you're interested in prehistory, it's well worth it. Then we have something that is ripening in my mind the more I think about it. I've talked on this channel many times about how I cycle through a lot of books in a month or a year or a decade. I cycle through a lot of books. A lot of them go through me. And that includes new books, new releases, and also older books. And with the new releases, the older books, time has spoken on a lot of them. With the newer books, time has not spoken. Famously, it has not spoken. And so, you don't know, no matter how good a critic you are, you don't know what book you're going to be thinking about in 10 years. And the fact that you're going to be thinking about it in 10 years could mean something. It could be something to say, something genuine and worthwhile to say about the book. And that is true in this case. I have never stopped thinking about this book. I wish I had not got rid of my copy. It's by Lawrence Buell, and it's called The Dream of the Great American Novel. This is the cover to the hardcover, and of course the Great American Novel being implied here is Moby Dick. But this is about a lot more than just Moby Dick. It's brilliant on all the books that it brings up, all the candidates that you would expect, all the natural candidates for that mythical category of the Great American Novel. Buell looks at what that is, when that whole idea started, what the candidates are, what they have in common and what they don't, what's dumb about the idea and what's good about it, and I loved it. I loved the whole of it. And the more I've thought about it, the more I've rolled parts of it in my mind, the more I love it. I wish I could find a copy of this. I would actually I don't even know if there was a paperback of this. So I have no idea if I'm blurbed on the paperback. I have no idea. I know the publicist loved my blurb, loved my review. But am I on the paperback of this book that I haven't been able to get out of my mind? No idea. Never seen it used. But I strongly, strongly recommend it if you are interested in this elusive subject of the Great American Novel, or even just listening to an incredibly nimble, sure-handed analysis of a handful of really memorable American books. I recommend it on that case anyway. No idea how much. If it's only in hardcover, I have no idea how available it is. I wish I'd kept mine. Don't know what I'm thinking. Then this next one is it's just terrific. This is by Stephen Baxter. This is his book, The Massacre of Mankind. This has come up a few times on this channel. It's a sequel to H.G. Wells' War of the Worlds, only this book is interesting, exciting, and well written. And despite the ultrasonic howls of protest from Michael K. Vaughan, Wells' book is not any of those things. And this is, the natural question that you have in mind at the end of the War of the Worlds, which is, what if the aliens come back? What if they come back? What if they learn their lessons and come back? And it's terrific. Oh my God, this is just so enjoyable. It is just so terrific. I don't know if it's still in print or not, but I loved it so much. And then we can wrap up this series of Hedgehog recommendations with Roz Chast, who is a canonical New Yorker cartoonist, their best living cartoonist. Although she would nominate someone else, and I would almost agree with her, but no. And it's a book by Roz Chast, so you know that it'll be illustrated, and you might think when you hear that it will be zany. Roz Chast New Yorker cartoons are unbelievably, wonderfully zany. They're also some of the most purely New York cartoons imaginable. She really captures that essence of the neurotic urban dweller that used to be the soul, or the heart and soul of the New Yorker. She really captures that better than any of their working artists do. But you would think if this is a Roz Chast book, then that's what it would be. And that you would be laughing from one end to the other. And it's true. There's a lot of zany humor in this book. A lot of very neurotic, urbanite, New York type humor. But you'll be crying at the end in the best possible way. I don't know what her colleagues at the New Yorker thought, but when I saw this advertised, in publisher catalogs, I thought I knew what I was going to get and did not suspect that Roz Chast could do a book like this. It's called Can't We Talk About Something More Pleasant? And the cover shows Roz Chast with her parents, her aging parents. And they're the ones saying, can't we talk about something more pleasant? And that's what this book is about. It's about living with, dealing with, talking with, arguing with her quirky elderly parents as they get older and a little bit less capable. So sociologists would say that books like this kind of book is common. The American population, like populations all over the world, is aging. More and more, this is becoming the story of more and more people in America. They have elderly people that they are basically caring for and living with. And those elderly people, sometimes they're loaded with annuities or with Social Security benefits that have not been gutted, or retirement funds or whatnot. So a lot of times these elderly people can chip in. They can more or less pay their way a bit. But there's a lot more going on than just money. And there's many different arrangements of this kind of scenario as there are people in the United States. But there's almost not one household in 10 that doesn't have something like this. So a sociologist would point that out, but this is entirely personal. And you will chuckle at the misadventures and the misunderstandings and the crossed wires. But it will hit you a lot harder than that as well. This is a masterpiece. Just a masterpiece. I can't recommend it strongly enough, even though it comes with that warning. This is not carefree. Don't let the cover fool you. Especially if you are currently living with elderly people, especially if they're your parents, but also if they're not. How many arrangements like that are there in the world where you're just living, you're taking care of an elderly person? It is common. Be prepared for that when you read this thing, because it will suck you in. You will definitely keep reading it, and it's got a punch to it. So I'm sorry, I should have picked something more carefree to end with, but that will end our random ass recommendations for today. No idea what these videos are. I have no idea what this series is. I blame Christopher Russell for this and a lot of other things, but I don't have any idea what these are. But I'm having a ball doing them. You seem to be enjoying them, so maybe we'll continue tomorrow. Maybe. But anyway, I'll wrap this up for now, and I'll see you soon. Thank you, BookTube.